Welcome attendees. Will wait for some time to join others.
Can you hear me, Aslesha?
Yes, Anup, I can hear you. I put it a comment in the chat box. Please read.
Okay. Yes. आयशा सुल्ताना, ये तो सैट्रैक की है।
Dear attendees, please wait. We'll start at 4 p.m.
Just give me 1 minute.
Hi, attendees will start in next 5 minutes. At 4:02, we'll start the discussion. I request all the panelists to switch on the camera, please, so attendees will able to see you. Welcome, Arvind sir. Suchita. Hi, Suchita. Welcome, Suchita. Surendra sir. Vibha, if you can switch on your camera. Yeah, hi. Thanks, Vibha. Welcome. Hi, Anup.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, attendees. So let me start the session. So my name is Ashlesha, and I'm hosting this discussion basically. So I wanted to tell you this is a webinar and it's only on the listening mode. So if you have any questions, you can put it into the Q&A section. We will ask the panelists to address them during or at the end of the session. So first of all, a very warm welcome to everyone for joining us today for this insightful discussions, which is nurturing talent through diversity and inclusion. So before, I think I am not the expert, so I don't want to talk much about the topic. But before we go into the topic, I just wanted to introduce our moderator, Mr. Anup Ramchandran. Welcome, Anup, who is a
Hi.
founder and director at the PHI Edge HR Tech. Anup brings over 3 decades of rich experience in the field of human resource, wherein he has led the HR functions for several blue chip companies, including the industry giants like Bajaj Auto Finance. He's not only the experts of the subject, he's also which is a very good quality of the Anup. He's also the innovator in the HR technology. Recognizing evolving needs of the industry, he has developed the HR tech product through his extensive leadership experience. Actually he's created the product which actually take care of the needs for the HR, which is the technology is adopting now. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed moderator, Mr. Anup Ramchandran. Anup, the floor is now yours. Please take this discussion forward. Anything, attendees, if you have any queries, please put it into the chat box. We'll address them. I welcome all the panelists also. Anup, stage is yours now.
Thanks, Aslesha, for this wonderful introduction. Good evening to everybody. My dear friends, my professional acquaintances who are panelists, all distinguished guests, etc. So today we are going to speak about nurturing talent through diversity and inclusion, which will help in an integrated workforce. In today's rapidly evolving business, we call it the VUCA world actually, organizations are facing a very unprecedented challenges and opportunities. One of the most powerful drivers of sustainable growth and innovation is basically diversity and inclusion. These are not just buzzwords actually, but these are of immense strategic importance, and that will shape how we are supposed to attract, develop, and retain the talent. Diversity, the first thing that comes to mind whenever I spoke to a lot of people, they speak only about gender. But diversity is not only gender, it's much more to do with it. It's got to do with race, diversity, location, religion, age, everything. So the more diverse the sort of employee that you have, the better sort of inputs you will have as an organization. The organization can thrive much more. It brings together a wide range of perspectives, experiences, and ideas from various demographics. Inclusion ensures that every voice is heard, valued, and empowered to contribute fully. I was just reminded of a small article which mentions Dr. Nelson Mandela. He is supposed to be a great leader because he says that, I mean, it is believed and said about him that he is the last to open and say something during a discussion. He invites everybody to speak, and at the end he actually speaks, And that shows how much of respect he actually allocates to so many people. So when we combine the integrated workforce, their thoughts, etc., then the collaboration thrives, barriers are all broken down, and the innovation flourishes. Yet, building such an inclusive work culture is much easier said than done. Organizations often encounter challenges like unconscious bias, cultural resistance, structural barriers, and power dynamics that goes on in our organization. That's why today's discussion is so very critical for all of us to explore the real world challenges, share effective strategies, and learn from the leaders whom we have invited into the panel and who have successfully navigated multiple organizations in this journey. Our esteemed panelists bring with them decades of experience from diverse sectors. It's from manufacturing, healthcare, aerospace, consulting, and global diversity.
This webinar is being recorded.
They will share their insights on how diversity and inclusion drive the talent growth and enhance employee engagement. Over the next 90 minutes, I'm sure none of us will be bored at all. It's a very exciting conversation. In these 90 minutes, we aim to uncover the practical approaches to building an integrated organization. And I'm sure it's going to be a truly inclusive environment. I invite you all to engage actively, ask the questions, to take away key insights that can help your organizations unlock the full potential of their talent through diversity and inclusion. Now, before we begin, I would just like to introduce our distinguished panelists. Mr. Arvind Ladda. It's my
Welcome,
pleasure
sir.
to introduce him. Arvind is the CFO at Loop Health, and he was the former president of Mercer India. He brings more than 25 years of leadership experience in business transformation, employee benefits, and organization strategy. He's widely recognized for his expertise in fostering innovation and inclusive workplace cultures across diverse industries. Arvind's strategic vision and commitment to people-centric growth have made him a trusted advisor to leading organizations. We are honored to have him share his insights on building integrated and high-performance teams. Arvind, we welcome you.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Ms. Suchitra Singh Basu. She's a distinguished leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion, an expert. As a DEI head for India and global programs at ZF Federation, Suchitra brings extensive experience in designing and implementing innovative strategies to nurture diverse talents and accelerate organization growth.
Welcome,
Her passion for
Suchitra.
creating inclusive workplaces and expertise in driving cultural transformation has made her a very respected voice in the industry. We are delighted to have her share her valuable perspectives on building truly integrated workplace. Suchitra, be welcome. Our third panelist, Mr. Surendra Vaidya. He's a very seasoned industry leader with over 4 decades of experience in the manufacturing and aerospace sector. As a former ED, Executive Director, and President of Godrej Aerospace, Mr. Vaidya has been instrumental in driving operational excellence, innovation, and people development in highly complex environments. He is renowned for his visionary leadership and his commitment to building high-performance inclusive teams. We are privileged to have him with us. Our fourth panelist is Vibha Anup. She's a distinguished leader in organizing people development. She has close to about 3 decades of experience, extensive experience in shaping high-impact HR strategies for various organizations. She drives transformative change in all these organizations. She has held prominent leadership roles, including heading the HR function at Godrej and Boyce and being a program director with Aditya Birla Group. Renowned for her strategic foresight and hands-on leadership, Vibha has spearheaded numerous large-scale interventions aimed at building leadership pipelines, enhancing employee engagement, and supporting organizations through complex changes. Vibha is also founder of PHIH HR Tech Private Limited, a pioneer in HR tech firm that delivers benchmark future-ready talent solutions across industries and geographies in India. Welcome, Vibha. Without wasting much time, I would so the format that we would go ahead with is that I would present 2 questions each to the panelists. So probably we'll have about say 8 to 9 questions, and we would invite their views of everybody else, and then towards the end I'll conclude, and then we'll throw the entire forum for inviting questions and for inviting answers for all your queries that you may have. So Arvind, the first question is for you. I wanted to actually set a context right, and hence if you could tell us something about what as per you is diversity and inclusion. The second part of the question is, what is the business value diversity brings to any organization?
First, let me thank you and PHIH for inviting me to alongside Mr. Vaidya, Suchita, and Vibha. I think as much as I would like to contribute, I would also gain something from these interactions. So thank you very much. Thanks also to the audience who've taken some time to join us this evening. Right. Just reflecting on the 2 questions you asked, I think if I look back at my career as an entrepreneur, then as a consultant, and now working in a high growth startup in the healthcare and health insurance sector, I realized that in every organization, our conversations, when they were conversations with a diverse set of people, drew far more insights. If I just look at my current organization, Loop, our initial idea was that we are looking to reshape the insurance industry and the healthcare industry. So we would actually look for people outside the industry, because a lot of innovators believe that innovation does not come from within, innovation comes from outside, right? But as we've grown, we've also looked to hire talent from these existing industries. And already we can see that this diverse pool of non-industry as well as industry experts is bringing to the table perspectives that we may not have had otherwise. So I think diversity in that sense, right, ensures that you get different points of view. Of course, diversity, like you rightly said, is not just about, we started maybe many years thinking of diversity as gender, and then over a period of time it's changed. Our organization, the average age is probably 26, 30, like any startup will be. But like you can see, we have a very diverse pool of people across age brackets. We also have a diversity across backgrounds, right? Whether they are socioeconomic backgrounds, educational backgrounds, or all sorts of backgrounds. And I think each of these backgrounds or each of these personalities, people have a point of view that some of us might not get. I was recently reading some research, and I found that in a survey that Great Places to Work Institute carried out, right, the ratio of retention of employees is 5x more in organizations that are seen as diverse. Right. But diversity is not just about having people who look different from each other or have different backgrounds from each other sit in the table. But only 2 people present a point of view. Diversity is about everyone in the room actually being able to contribute. And I think that then brings me to the second point that you made, which was about inclusion. Right? Everybody can make out in a room about who leads the conversation, right? And if it is only a certain type of people who lead the conversation, even if you had other people in the room, that room is not inclusive. That room is not diverse. It's diverse statistically. It's not diverse for any in terms of value. So I think diversity and inclusion, or I would say inclusion brings diversity alive. Diversity without inclusion is not diversity actually, right? And reflecting on the second point that you made, right? What is the business value? I think across my personal journey, I've seen significant business value. In my previous organization, when I led Mercer Consulting in India, we had a stated mandate, internal mandate, that for, I would say, conversations or meetings, right? We will ensure that we have some level of diversity in our teams that went to meet clients. And we could see that clients actually appreciated. More than once, a client told us at the end of the meeting that I really like that you're not all same type of, like all men dressed in blue wearing a jacket type of thing, but you actually have diversity. You have some younger people, you have some women in the team, etc. I think it reflects on the culture of the organization. I found that we generally did better when we had diverse teams. There is enough research, whether you look at McKinsey or Harvard Business School or Gartner, where companies, where teams that are diverse and inclusive make better decisions just because better perspectives are brought to the table. They are more innovative, and therefore their performance as commercial organizations, as business organizations, is superior to non-diverse or non-inclusive environment. So that is a bit about what I feel about diversity and inclusion, about my own experience and research that I've read. Hopefully it answers the question.
Thank you so much for your wonderful insights, Arvind. I pass on the same question to our other panelists. Suchita, Ms. Suchita, do you have any views on this?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me for this panel with the stellar co-panelists. Truly honored and very happy to be here. And thank you for everybody who's joined and for listening. Yeah, so I think here's what I think. Understanding of the criticality of cognitive diversity for business, which can come if you have voices. It's pretty much in the line of what everyone spoke about till now. They come from the different life and work experiences that people have and they bring to the table. And, we look at diversity more in terms of gender, but it's also multi-generational diversity, as Arvind pointed out, as he's experiencing in his organization right now, or regional diversity or internationality, whatever you look at it. To basically reiterate on something that Arvind mentioned a little while back, what has happened is there are two things. The research shows a positive correlation between companies with consistent good financial performance and diverse workforce and diverse boards and inclusive cultures. But we do not have definitive research that shows the causality. I mean, there are bits and pieces of information and research papers here and there, but what exactly leads to that is something which is still a little fluid and really open to interpretation. So that is where sometimes when D&I, when you see organizations getting started with their D&I journey, it often takes the shape of performative allyship or tokenist approach, where people do a lot of things just to show, right? So I'll give you an example. If you look, I looked at an interesting, very, very interesting report, I think about 3 or 4 months back. We were looking at the diversity on boards across different regions and countries of the world. And what that report showed was that boards of Scandinavian countries or companies which are incorporated in countries like Finland or Sweden were were the most diverse. And this diversity was not just in terms of gender diversity, it was also in terms of internationality. For example, if you look at any large manufacturing company, and I think, Vibha, you work with a lot of companies like that, and you have in the past as well, you would find, a lot of large manufacturing companies work extensively in countries like India or China, but you will rarely see that representation in the leadership. And women is just one part of the story, but this happens. If you bring that to a more granular level, one of our plants, and I would basically like to illustrate this point with this example. One of the plants that we run in a city called Coimbatore, we have a lot of regional diversity in the plant. Almost, Coimbatore is a town, like a tier 2 town or tier 3 town. I don't know how we classify it exactly. I think it's tier 2. It's a tier 2 town in Tamil Nadu, but Tamils are actually a minority in that plant. And that plant is one of our most productive, most profitable plant. The plant head of that particular facility is a Maharashtrian, actually from Pune. The person who reports into him, the operations head, he's a Bengali. The workforce is mixed. They are from the nearby states. They are from Kerala and Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. There are a few Tamilians as well. Again, very, very mixed relation. And we do not have a union in that plant. Somehow we have managed to run that plant without a union. And having worked so much with manufacturing companies, Vibha, you would know probably how difficult it is to run plants without unions and how to basically keep out the external issues, right, which come around, which happen if you don't have a registered union. We do have a system where there's an employee council. We have regular connects to hear voices, all of that. It's a fantastic plant. It is basically a showcase plant within the group. When we talk about what we call a factory of the future, that is what we show, that this is what it should look like, both from diversity standpoint as well as the way it is run. And all the metrics that we have a maturity system that we look at. It's a production metrics that we look at on how mature the processes and systems in a plant are, and it is always in the top percentile. So you will see the outcome of positive of inclusion of diverse workforces across different businesses, but the exact causality is still a little questionable. Not much of research, but there are plenty of examples to showcase that. So this is where I would like to stop right now.
Great. Thanks, Sujita, for your inputs. Now let's switch our focus to Mr. Surendra Vaidya. I mean, he's headed a large manufacturing firm. Workshops. Factories. Inherently, earlier were filled with a lot of male population. So to hear from Mr. Surendra Vaidya would be a pleasure. Mr. Surendra Vaidya, over to you. What are your views on this?
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Thank you. It's lovely, interesting debate which you have put in today, and I was fortunate to start looking after or start the journey of Godrej and Boyce into the aerospace, which is not a consumer product. Otherwise, we have been known in the field for last 100 years or more than 100 years for the aerospace, the consumer field. So that was the first diversity, or you can say that was the first major shift which Godrej wanted to bring in. And it was a time when some of our businesses were not doing well, in the sense they were out of market, like manual typewriters. There was no need for a manual typewriters. So it was a large business, and quite a good number of employees working there needs to be absorbed into a new business as a policy, as a strategy. And similarly, we used to run a foundry, which was not economical to run it in Mumbai. So that foundry was also getting closed. And then we had shifting of our businesses because of the octroi and other commercial reasons out of Mumbai, and those businesses also had to be absorbed. So the first diversity came to me when these 14 divisions were ready to give me anyone and everyone whom I wanted, and how to really bring those 14 different cultures into aerospace cultures, which is a global culture, which is not an Indian culture at all. Because you know that the Airbus and the Boeings and Pratt and Whitney and GE and Rolls-Royce, they're all working in a large way, whether it is the sector, whether it is the civil aviation, but across the global, and each one of them have more than 100 countries supply chain partners in their systems. So each country brings in its own culture, the regional culture, the social culture, the financial culture, and to replicate that would have been little easy, but then it would have created a problems later on. Initially, it would have been easy for us 2-3 years to go as what they have been recommending to us, or as we were learning from Russia and France, the two friendly countries in those days before 2006. But matching exactly the culture between two countries is extremely difficult. Their practices, their norms, their beliefs, everything is completely different. I mean, forget about the financial and the gender and the race and the caste, the additional things what we have it in India. But that was the first challenge, and we found that it is good that we were having that kind of exposure within the Godrej, that is the 14 divisions bringing different cultures and different countries from the world who are giving us opportunities to work for them and learn. And then that mix really brought us to the inclusion. How are we going to really create this 100 countries who are going to supply with the same system, with the same culture, so that the product, when it comes out, once again goes all across the world. It is not that the Boeings are being sold only in the US and the Airbus is sold only in Europe. It's being sold all over the world, and everywhere it requires to be serviced, it requires to be taken care, and the managed and the training of each individual personnel. So we learned a lot, and the first and the biggest learning in that was you must encourage as much as diversity as possible, because that is going to bring in the innovation, the more new culture, irrespective whether he is coming from which financial background or the region or from which, but his ideas are going to be surely different because he has been brought up in a different culture at different levels. And that really helped us, because we had to develop more than 25 different processes, and each process requires a very careful attention. Being the aerospace, the only survival is your good document, otherwise your accidents are going to be fatal only. So how to really make those documents perfect and ensure that these documents, once written, approved, qualified, you don't change. Even if you have a better idea, you are not allowed to change. So I think that's really, I was fortunate to had seen in the last 40 years how to really use this diversity and the inclusionness of these teams to bring in the best product and really make the India proud or the world proud. Thank you.
Mr. Vaidya, thank you so much for your valuable insights. Now, I will just request Vibha to share her views, because Vibha has been working with many organizations for more than about 2.5 decades now. So Vibha, tell me, I mean, how does diversity benefit all the organizations that you have worked for?
Okay, thank you, Anup, for this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to actually be a panel member along with Surender, Arvind, and Suchita. Thank you here, and wanted to share with you that in my consulting experience, and as Suchita shared, we are working with a lot of manufacturing organizations, and the drive initially, to be honest, on D&I has come from the customers, because they kind of ask us to, because we work a lot with the mid-size and small-size companies, and, the demand for bringing in diversity and inclusivity is really driven by the customers. And to most of the times, it is something which is a mandate, and it is just done like a, as a cosmetic change, as Suchita shared. It is more of that. But there are a few companies where we've been able to do an extensive work, and the most important thing which kind of struck the chord was to understand that where we could able to establish a strong linkage between, business really benefiting from this intervention. And what we realized is that the toughest hurdle for us was to actually establish this connect for the leadership, and once the leadership is convinced and gives a strong message down the line, you can roll out a lot of initiatives, because most of these companies where we work, they don't have so many resources to be able to, resources are constrained for them. So, anything that they put in place is questioned 10 times of the ROI, then, doing it just for the cosmetic manner. So what the kind of wherever we've been able to do successful implementations, what we realized is that definitely the boardroom discussions, the steering committee meetings had become more open, and there were different perspectives which were coming on the table. This was clear. I would also like to say that at sometimes even a toxic environment changed, because you have a different maybe a gender coming in, so that it is constrained and people suddenly become conscious about in the floor, and it has really helped in the decision making. Also, I've seen, and this is more for our HR folks here, that talent availability suddenly becomes much wider, because you are looking at you do not have any bias. And while working with a lot of promoters to get that change in terms of not having bias and working with a wider talent is something which requires a lot of deep understanding of how it will help the business while doing these activities. So what we realized is that today, rather than really working on talent hiring, I see organizations that they need to be talent magnets. I always say that you need to be a talent magnet, because if you're thinking of growth and you need that kind of talent, it's not going to come unless you really have a culture which is very welcoming all kinds of people. So what we realized is that having this business connect in terms of saying that the culture becomes more open, there's more empathy, you become a better talent magnet in the organization, has kind of convinced the leadership to look at this initiative as a business mandate. And after that, what we did is that we've put that as a part of our vision plan to say that, okay, D&I initiatives need to be a part of the vision plan, so that they are reviewed at the board level in a very systematic manner to see the progress on the same. Because these glass ceilings to be broken requires a very strong message from the leadership, not once, twice, but every time. And that's the reason we realized that, having that as a part of the vision plan, measuring it systematically, periodically is very critical. Yes, more
so
as
much.
we share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vibha. Now let's just shift gears, because what we have heard is how does diversity bring value to an organization? The next is, yes, it brings a lot of value. But my next question to Suchita is, what, as per you, are the biggest challenges you have faced in building an integrated, inclusive workforce, and how did you overcome them?
So, I've actually worked full-time in D&I in two organizations, both were European multinational organizations, and of very different levels of maturity from the D&I perspective, if you look at it. And I think the understanding of why D&I is critical for an organization and can't really be looked upon as purely an HR initiative, or why is it critical for the business or top leadership commitment, those are problems that I didn't really face too much, either here in ZF or in my previous organization, which was a French IT multinational company. I didn't face that too much, but they can be. And, as Vibha mentioned, top leadership commitment is usually one of the hardest to come by. So, see, the way this conversation starts is usually people look at ESG ratings. People, diversity is about 20-25% of your ESG ratings is contributed through if you look at the questionnaires or you look at a customer audit, especially if you have a customer who is based in Europe, you will find almost 20, 25%, 30% questions sometimes, which are all D&I related, and they go very deep. They're not very surface level. Like, for example, they will not just ask for representation metrics, they will go a level lower. They'll say, okay, what is your retention percentage, this, that, a whole bunch of stuff. So organizations have started realizing that this is something very critical. Also, what has happened, and this is something which I have seen particularly in my current organization and our competition, also other companies in this sector, which is the automobile sector, German automobile sector. Germany grew and they became very, very comfortable. And if you looked at German boards across different organizations, they only had Germans. Once in a while, you will find a Belgian or somebody from one of the Scandinavian countries or an Italian or something like that, or an American. But they were actually just German middle-aged men making decisions. That worked. It worked for a while. But what is happening right now is we can no longer operate in the same manner. The geopolitical situation is such that your access to different geographies, market, countries, there are more and more barriers. And you cannot solve today's business problems or any other problems per se with solutions which you use for yesterday's problems. It's a new normal. I mean, what companies like ours have gone through in the last 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 months, where every morning there was something new on tariff in the news, which affected our company and many others like us. And we operate in 30 countries. So it was like different sort of impact in different countries. It was a mess. Thankfully that seems to have settled down a little bit, but that realization is hit home. Right? That realization that we need to be more diverse, that realization that we need to hear voices from other parts of the world where we operate. We are looking at, our revenue mixes are changing. We are looking at a revenue mix which is higher outside Germany than what it is from Germany, or for that matter, from Europe. And if you have to do that, you have to hear the voices, you have to understand the markets in all these countries. And therefore, this has happened very organically. I mean, we didn't really have to do much. And today, we talk about it a lot. We do talk about it quite a bit. We let people know what is it that we can bring to the table. I think in the last 6 months, I must have done at least 4 or 5 large global sessions on bias in data and AI. Since we are an automotive company, I have focused a lot on that sector, though actually a lot of the study which has been done in this particular on this particular topic is from the healthcare industry mostly, but I normally refer to the automotive industry topics. But what happened as an outcome of all the conversations that we've had with several people was today we are collaborating with the Center of Innovation in one of our R&D centers on figuring out how can we make our products and services safer for our end customer. In some cases, we have to collaborate with the OEMs as well. So that is one. The other thing that we are also looking at is systemic issues. There are accountability issues. There are accountability metrics that we use. There is there's a LTI component, which comes from the way you grow diversity in whichever part of the team you're leading in the organization. I'm not personally very much in favor of, accountability and quotas and all that kind of stuff, because I think it pushes people back. But in some countries it works brilliantly in Asia. It may or may not work in Europe. There's a huge backlash in the US, but it works brilliantly in Asia, and there are people who are sitting up and thinking about it. Again, as we work in the automobile sector, ESG ratings are very important for us. Europe is going more and more green. And it is impossible for companies who do not have good ESG ratings to operate in the US. So we are actually also collaborating with teams which work in ESG, teams which work on sustainability development goals. We have different projects that we run with them to see what is it that we can do to improve our diversity metrics. So we have a strong business case, and I think that is what works at the end of the day. It is unfortunate but true. And I was very much against, talking about diversity in terms of numbers and bottom line and top line and all that kind of stuff. And then I heard somebody who leads an autism at work program in IBM, and fairly successfully from what I hear. And he said, listen, you have to present a proposal which shows some sort of a benefit to the business, otherwise it doesn't fly. So that is something that I have learned over a period of time. Talent is very critical component of that entire mix. You cannot do well in business if you are not able to be what we have called a talent magnet. So we can attract, retain more and more women, people from different regions. We have really, really bent backwards to do that at ZF, especially in India. We actually have compendiums on how to help people settle down in cities like Chennai. Because if you're attracting talent from Hyderabad or Pune, they don't want to go to Chennai. And then we have to tell them, oh, Chennai is not what you think it is. And this is what you can also do. It's a beautiful city. If you're into driving, if you're into biking, this is what you can do. So we've actually done stuff like that. We made, when we onboard people, on the day that we onboard people, we actually tell them what a fantastic place Chennai is to live in. So stuff like that. So, I mean, this is, again, on a lighter note. But I think what has really, really worked is, making that business case and then drawing a line of sight on what we are doing on a day-to-day basis to that business case. Not easy, requires a lot of conversations. A lot of the ideas actually came from the leadership teams themselves. I did not think about it. They told me this is why we need to do this. And this is how you can probably make this fly if you're taking this proposal to your global teams or whoever else needs to sign them off. But that's what worked for us.
Great, Suchita. Quickly over to Mr. Arvind Ladda and then to Vibha. Both have headed organizations, both have been in the consulting space, have provided their views and ideas to many organizations. Quickly to Mr. Arvind Ladda, in terms of what do you think are the biggest challenges that you have faced in terms of building a diverse culture?
I think challenges come in many different ways. I would start first by reflecting on myself, right? For a long time, I did not realize, right, in the initial part of my career, that just inviting people to speak does not mean that everybody feels equally invited. Right? So you might say, yes, why don't you all come in the room? You think you've been very open, you think you invited everyone to speak, and that's what you're expected to do. But I realized only later, maybe 4 or 5 years into my career, when one of the female colleagues who'd been in the organization for more than 2 years said, today it really felt like you invited me to speak. So I said, I didn't do anything different today. She said, no, today you specifically reached out to me and specifically asked me for my opinion on a couple of things. I said, but your opinion was always invited. She said, it's one thing about saying everyone is invited, but at least for a few times, we really want to know that we are specifically invited. That really opened for me a realization that I didn't think I needed to do anything differently, but how we behave is also in the context of what's happening in the larger socio-economic environment, right? And our organization is only a part of that, and we cannot sort of ignore the larger frame of operation in which people operate. So I think the first challenge, if I may say, is the leader or leadership itself, right? Then it is about other colleagues and managers, right? As a leader, I realized that just asking people to be more inclusive and diverse was not good enough, right? Managers wanted to know, why do you ask me to do this? What should I expect, right? What could the business outcome look like, right? And Vibha and Suchita spoke at length of how it is important to actually speak in the language of business sometimes, right? Even if what you're trying to achieve is not really a business goal, right? Of course, everything actually adds up in some ways or the other. She spoke of correlation, but not necessarily causation, right? And all of that. But certainly for hard-nosed commercial organizations and commercial managers, being able to draw some sort of line, right, from diversity inclusion to the possibility of gains on the business side, I think unlocks that. In our organization, we did start with having at least a prescriptive sort of lens on what we are looking to achieve. That was numerical, right? And there is enough opinion on whether it makes sense to have quotas or not have quotas. But I thought at least a prescriptive guideline so people know what they are aspiring for. When organizations do merit increase, and we've advised enough organizations, I had a chance to work with enough number of organizations about how they should use the lens of diversity while looking at annual appraisals, performance cycles, merit increases, promotions, etc. We ensured that we generally looked at, we wanted to be sure that the representation was similar. It does not have to be identical. And where it is not, we were convinced that it is not, right? It was not about having the same degree or of distribution, but being sure that that distribution is a thoughtful one and not laced with some sort of unconscious bias, right? And third, of course, is like I said earlier, my example, in actually enrolling the colleagues and the team members onto that, because not everyone automatically believes that what you say is what you mean. So I think, to my mind, these three lenses, the leader as the hurdle, the managers, and then the larger organization. To my mind, these are three things.
Thank you so much, Arvind. Quickly over to you, Vibha. You have coached various organizations. What are your views in terms of what are the challenges that you have faced in building in bringing diversity as a value for the organization?
I think both Suchita and Arvind have shared, the challenges well, and I just will add something. In fact, I agree very much with them that leadership, managers, the challenge that I faced. That actually today people a lot of, because today DNI is also a fad, and for people, managers or leaders, I would say senior management, I'm not talking about the board, but for them to openly say no to it is also something that is not accepted well. So at the face of it, everything will seem as if yes, I'm in for it, I'm going to do this for you, this is how we will. But there are these glass ceilings, and so you will hear things like, okay, I wanted to kind of hire this person, but they will not sit late, this will not happen, they will not travel, that's unnecessary, I will have too much constraint, I also need to meet my numbers, so how do we do? So these conversations keep happening. So there's always a but beauty which comes in when you are talking about diversity, and it's something which is talked about. So what we realized is that having these employee resource groups where you have a lot of conversations and sharing of perspectives and sharing of successful case studies actually helps the leaders also, the managers. So what we realized is that actually having these people lead these employee resource groups and kind of encouraging exchange of notes helped in actually changing their own perspective and breaking the glass ceilings for them. So the challenge was to build that awareness among people, when at the face it's yes, and inside something which is that and it's sometimes a genuine concern. It's not something which they are talking about, it's a genuine concern of how the delivery will come in. And unless you share successful case studies, really support the underrepresented group to actually have more successes, this kind of DNI initiatives to be successful in an organization is a constraint.
Thank you so much, Vibha, for your insights. My next question is for Surendra Vaidya. He's headed very large organization, multiple businesses, 14 or so all together at the same time, dealing with thousands of people. So the question for you, Mr. Surendra, is what role does an inclusive leadership, because you have played the role of an ED in that organization. So what role does inclusive leadership play in identifying and nurturing a diverse talent across various countries, geographies, and how can we develop more inclusive leaders at all the levels?
So first of all, I think we must understand that any manufacturing is very tier-based and has to be a very systematic process. You cannot take any shortcuts, because any shortcut at any level, at the final product level, when you are going to test it, is going to be very detrimental. Second, say the field which I have concentrated is the aerospace and defense. So here you are not allowed to do your own inspection. There has to be a third party who gets involved into it. So even if you are very proud and even if you feel that what I have done is the good and best in the interest of the product as per the designer's requirement, but unless and until it is being certified by somebody else who is a neutral or not a part of your organization, he may come from Ministry of Defense, he may come from any other authority which is appointed by the government of India or from the federations who give the airworthy certifications. And you have to accommodate them into your system, even if you are not willing to share your processes and the process details. Because of the mandatory or the statutory requirements, certain details are required to be shared, and they are allowed to be witnessed by the third party. Now, there are strong NDAs which are signed, and we take care of a lot of our documentation. But when you expose it to a third party, you are not sure. So you tend to really hide something, and then the real result starts in sometimes. Similarly, in the manufacturing setup, you cannot do 100% of the production right from washer to the final aircraft or a missile yourself. You need to have supply chain partners. There are different materials and different services which are being provided. And lastly, since it is more of a manufacturing where the ratio in a typical aerospace is where for one management you have about 10 workmen. I mean, the auto industry could be 1 to 100, but at least in aerospace, because of a lot of supervision which is required to ensure that the processes are being correctly followed, and the calibration and recalibration of the processes happens at periodic intervals. So you have a lot of supervisors involved in it. So why I give this background is that even if somebody is an expert or he is the highly qualified in that organization, he has to submit, he has to report to somebody else who is going to come from other than the designer, other than the end user, other than the buyer, as a third party surveyor or inspector, and you have to open all your cards in front of him. So you have no choice. Similarly, a small service provider, I mean, when you have a large workforce at different tiers, even a different menu in the canteen sometimes matters. So you have to be so careful that when he is going to come back on that particular day when the incident has been reported, you have to be really, really taking care of your production, because the immediate thing which is in the hands of a workman or even your colleagues and supervisor is to take a revenge. I'm using a wrong word probably, but that's what really happens on a shop floor. So pardon me for a word like this. But then, and after that, you are going to give 12 years or 15 years of guarantee on the product, which is not something what you can go and service it. A satellite, once it goes up, you can't do any servicing. Missile, once it goes out of your barrel, you can't do any servicing. And in such cases, to maintain the quality and the productivity at the same time is really a challenge. And there we really have found a way as to who's really a good manager. I mean, he technically may not be really a sound person, but if he is able to manage the crisis, I think he is the real manager in the production units. There are technology providers, scientists who will come and they will set the machines or they will set the processes. So those who come with different backgrounds, and there the diversity, you have to be very, very careful in choosing your people or making the internal transfers after you get more details, because finally at the time of interview or when you go through his resume, you have a limited time. But later on, when you try to train and work with him for next 3 to 6 months, that's the time if you really don't move and put him to the right slot where what kind of a crisis are likely to come or what kind of a challenges are likely to come. So when the product is under development, you are free to have a huge innovation, different practices. But once the product gets developed, qualified, you are not allowed to change even a small parameter change here and there. So those who are very obedient, those who have come from that kind of a culture, where they respect parents and whatever has been told to them by the parents, that becomes important. I think that's the selection of really a leader, to how do you really mix and match the teams at different product levels and at different processes. So I think that's what I would like to really contribute here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Surendra. Over to Vibha now. Vibha, you have managed, you have guided a lot of SMEs ranging from about say 200 crore to about say 3 to 4,000 crore turnover organization. So tell me, I mean, how can a smaller or a resource constrained organization build a strong DNI, because they are at a short of time, they want everything extremely fast. So how can a smaller or a resource constrained organization build a strong DNI culture without large budgets?
I think what's important, as everybody spoke about, is of course the leadership buy-in and having diversity and inclusive part of the vision plan is what's important. Typically here we start with actually looking at the kind of policies and the infrastructure which is required to bring in diversity. So what's important is to actually initially conduct an audit, or diversity and inclusive audit, where you understand the changes that you need to do in terms of the policies, what kind of workforce representation that you require, what kind of diversity are we looking at, whether it's only gender, whether it is specially able, whether it's ethnicity, age, international groups. So you kind of define that clearly and conduct an audit to understand where we are today, or set up some goals for the organization. Then also relook at, these employee resource groups, as I shared earlier, has been very helpful when it came to actually bringing about the change. So, this is something which having these resource groups, ensuring that they are meeting regularly, discussing subjects, has kind of helped in bringing the change process. Of course, we've worked on the infrastructure also, because, whether it is, as Surendra said, that, whether it's a canteen, whether it's the transport, whether it's daycare, whether it is looking at, what time the meetings need to happen in an organization. There's something that, you work on. We also did a lot of work in terms of hiring, because, the kind of, sometimes even if the mandate is there to hire, we don't have enough sources from where the hiring can be done. And that had created a lot of constraint and slowed down the pace at which we could implement the DNI initiatives. So having good sources where talent can be available to these organizations at the required budget was something which was also important to work on. So, having the right kind of sources which can encourage the diversity was important. Of course, having flexible work arrangements, those kind of policies, whether it is, looking at the kind of job descriptions you have, the communication which is happening among the documents that you have, do they really represent only one gender, or it is both genders are covered in that. These little things really make a lot of difference in terms of creating impact. And as you said, yes, there is a resource constraint which is there among these businesses. But if you make a business case, and as Suchita shared that in automotive sector, ESG is now a mandate which most of the businesses have compulsorily you need to look at, and DNI is one of the components of ESG framework. People do allocate budgets for this. All is required is to give a correct ROI based on whatever is the budget that's set.
Thank you so much, Vibha. So what I could gather from all our distinguished speakers is, first, for DNI to work, you need to actually give a ROI, a plan. There has to be timelines. it has to start from the leadership, top down. People should feel that they are really needed as a part of the team, as rightly mentioned by Arvind. And also, what Mr. Surendra also said is that it's not an easy task actually to drive a D&I culture in the organization, because there are so many constraints in terms of time, in terms of moving everything as per the speed, as per plan, etc. But yes, it's an exciting journey, and we will seek more answers from all our distinguished panelists in this particular journey. So my next question is again to Mr. Arvind Ladda. So what role should leaders play in building an inclusive team? How can organizations, so again, all my questions, I ask you one question, but then I want two answers actually. So pardon me for that. So what role should leaders play in building inclusive teams? That's one. And how can organizations be accountable for the D&I progress?
I think part of it takes me back to what I was mentioning earlier in terms of maybe having soft quotas like we did, right? Maybe looking at what is it in terms of performance management cycles, merit increases, promotions that we are looking at. So this is about the numbers. I think there's also about communication, right? About ensuring that the whole organization sees the leader as somebody who truly believes in this, about having feedback loops, right? I remember during my time at Mercer, we launched the Women at Mercer Forum, right? It took off very well. We did really well for about 12 to 18 months, right? And then the ERG was led by a few people who then decided that they wanted to focus on what the work. They stepped back. They brought other people into it. And the next sort of team did not really pick it up with the same momentum, right? And for about 6-8 months, it did not go anywhere. And then I realized that, of course, it was part of my responsibility while I had appointed a team. So actually also ensuring that the team sees this as is not as a flavor of the month sort of thing, but as something that you truly believe in, right? So building that feedback loop, ensuring that there's communication. In every town hall, we used to talk about this in different perspectives. It does not only have to be out numbers, it could be out many other areas, right? It also helps to have this as a question in your exit interviews. Oftentimes people will tell you in an exit interview what they will not talk to you while they are in the organization for fear of repercussions, right? So I think, and the last thing I'll say is that for the leader to be actively listening and display empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, right, is very important. There's a disproportionate influence that leaders and managers have on how colleagues see what the organization believes in, and their actions, of course, always speak louder than their words, right? So I think that to me is what it is about, what it takes to build that rock culture. I forgot the second part of your question. Sorry.
The second question is, how can organizations be accountable for the D&I progress?
I think some form of reporting is necessary for us to be accountable. There could be various metrics. Some could be hard metrics, some could be soft metrics. There has to be a vision. There has to be a charter that we are aspiring for, right? If an organization has 30% representation for, let's say, females in the bottom, right, but only 10% towards the top, then maybe there has to be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year goal, right, about where they see this representation going, right? Ensuring that for every meaningful position, to ensure that the talent acquisition team has to get X number of people from different sort of diverse groups, right? So that there is that focus on ensuring diversity, right? And not automatically gravitate towards people like us when we are even hiring. So I think these are some of the things that one could do to build accountability.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Arvind. The next question is to Suchita. So, in what ways? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, you're audible, Anup. You're audible.
Okay. So, my next question to Suchita is, in what ways can organizations measure the effectiveness of their D&I initiatives beyond just representation metrics? Because yes, very important, which Arvind just covered, is that you have to have some sort of a reporting. But beyond that, beyond just representation metrics, what ways can the organization measure the effectiveness? How can technology help in this particular regard?
So I think that's a very interesting question. Earlier I spoke about performative allyship and tokenism, and I think Arvind also alluded to that, right? Whether leaders actually walk the talk on D&I at all or not. And I think this is where we really start looking at data, and beyond speeches and nice sounding statements and ERG activities and Women's Day celebrations, and there's a whole list. Representation metrics, to my mind, is a lagging indicator. It is an outcome of a lot of little things that you do. It all adds up into what is your representation. As Arvind mentioned, if you have 30% at the bottom and 10% at the top, gender diversity, what happened, right? So I would look at things like inclusive hiring metrics. I think, some of us spoke about some of these metrics. These are all metrics where, we look at, how many people are we interviewing, women, how many of them are women, how many of them are from different regions, etc., etc. How many are getting hired. So it is not just the sourcing metrics. You also look at how many of them are actually clearing, your selection processes, and why, and who are those people who are actually interviewing them. A lot of companies, when they want to improve their hiring metrics, if at all there are enough number of women coming in through the sourcing pipelines, actually also promote diverse boards. They say that there should be at least one woman on the interview panel, irrespective of the role, who can probably weigh in on the hiring decision. So, you look at all these like different kind of things. You look at retention metrics. That is very, very telling. What is the rate of retention for males versus females? I actually don't look at any performance career management data without slicing and dicing it through males and females, because that is actually you can look at other diversity dimensions, but this is the easiest, which you can look at across the world. Performance assessment analysis. So I have a very interesting experience that I had some time back. We used to do these large talent reviews where a lot of business leaders would join in, and they would all talk about what they're doing to promote talent and strengthen the succession pipeline in their respective whichever areas they were leading. And I was leading the performance career management COE at that point, and therefore comparing this entire session. What I did once is, just the performance management or performance assessment data, I sliced it through the whole gender diversity. Basically I showed the gender diversity flow through that. So for example, I think we had a 5-point scale. So we looked at the gender diversity of the entire headcount, which went through the performance assessment process, and then the gender diversity for each of those 5 levels. And sure enough, hypothetically speaking, if you were 40-60, 40% women, 60% men, by the time we reached the top talent, we barely had 10% women for most of our business areas. So, and I just kept it on. I mean, that was not even on the agenda. We just kept it on. And, as people, how it happens in these calls, people are like trickling in the first 10 minutes. Everybody would look at it and keep staring at that. And then finally, our operations head, he asked me to explain. He said, what is the slide about? I said, well, that's not the point today, but this is what it really means. And most of them are shocked because they had never looked at data like that. This was about 10 years back. I'm sure they do a lot. The outcome of that was one of the outcomes. There were 2-3 outcomes. One of the outcomes of that was we found that the roles which were high business impact, high skill roles, high client visibility roles, which is where people are paid more also, had very, very low gender diversity. So as an organization, the gender diversity was okay. But these roles, and when we started running programs to start bridging the gap, upskilling women and, things like that. So when that happened, automatically the gender parity became better. So, some of these data points are really, lagging indicators. They will improve if you get the basics right. There's another example that I can give you of, we used to run a process, which was a mini assessment center for people to go through. When, basically they had to go through this assessment center to get promoted as directors or vice presidents. And one day I was analyzing, again, the male female data, like I used to do for literally everything that came onto my desk. We were looking at analyzing the data, and we found that the success rate for women through this process, this assessment center process, was 82%. And for men, it was somewhere between 60 to 65%. And then we started doing a deep dive there also. So basically the way this assessment center used to work is your manager could basically just recommend you to go through the assessment center. The actual promotion would happen only if you cleared it, and depending on whatever the outcome of the assessment center was. And then I started looking at the profiles of women who were recommended for promotions and men who were recommended for promotions. And I found that women had to work a lot harder just to get recommended. So by the time they got recommended for this process or for this assessment center, they had very consistent potential ratings, very consistent performance ratings, had filed patents, had done all sorts of things. Most men, probably just the last one or 2 years is when, so all these ERG activities and all that we are talking about, Vibha, this bridges the gap between these kind of issues that we see in organizations. So I think metrics are very important, but I also feel we shouldn't look at them at the surface level. There has to be a deep dive. I think your experience should come in handy at figuring out solutions to these problems, and not just identifying solutions. Oh, we don't see women because they get married and go away. They don't want to grow. Not the case anymore. Yeah, they get married, but they have supportive husbands. The latest survey that Aon did, which we also participated in, it basically showed that women are highly ambitious. So, of course, it was mostly engineers, not from other streams so much, from business schools and engineers. But they showed that women were very, very, very high on ambition, and they all said they would go to any lengths to progress in their careers. So I think, the fact that there's an aspiration gap and all that, those are all, it doesn't happen anymore. I mean, we all have daughters, many of us, and, we've seen, they are no different to our male children. So I think these, representation metrics, to my mind, are lagging indicators. Lagging indicators. We start needing to look at, you need to start looking at these matrices, which actually lead up to the representation being the way it is. And I think only looking at representation doesn't help, because there are many ways of getting to whatever point you want to. But the idea is that sustainable in the long run? And is it actually helping the organization and the employees in the long run?
Thank you. Thank you, Suchita. In fact, I can see two very ambitious women in the panelists itself. I think you brought out some very important points. There are a few HRMS organizations who actually give many of these indicators. For example, they have hiring metrics in terms of how many men versus women. They have a recruitment ratio. They have an increment ratio in terms of what is the percentage of increment that generally women get, generally men get. A variable pay ratio is there. Career growth, how many women have grown in the organization vis-a-vis a male. What are the sort of leaves that are approved? Okay, the performance rating between various genders, differentiation is there. Even the employee satisfaction survey basis genders are there. Okay, I think we are evolving as an organization. Even in terms of the HRMS, it actually covers many of these aspects. Thanks for throwing more light into this, Suchita. Now, my next question is to Mr. Surendra Vaidya. So what strategies are most effective in engaging a underrepresented group within an organization?
So let me just tell you, right from recruitment to the retirement, if we don't really map or plan everybody's career who's getting joined, then it is going to be a little difficult. So how we did that was, so first of all, we prepare a job description or a position content document or some document for which the position is going to get announced, the details about it. And when these details are published, there is no right fit you will get it, because no academic institutions or no other company is exactly same like you, or no academician is going to produce specific requirement or specific requirements that an organization needs or that particular position needs. So you have to do a compromise, and we were able to select the best among them. But later on we changed our practice and we started sharing what was our planning, our job description for that position, and where do you stand as per us. And we used to take, after he is being selected and he joins, that this was our assessment, this is what we have actually wanted to have a person, but these are all the shortcomings or these are all the plus points what we see in you. So how will you build your career now on the other aspects, or do you have any other opinion that this position is fulfilled without the description what we started with, and it can be rewritten? So that's the way first I think we will get the diversification content, that this is the right choice or this is the right mix now after having selected that person. The next question comes in is that everybody is not a good listener or everybody doesn't have the same characteristics. So the diversity what we talked is the one portion of it, like the race and the caste and the sex and the age. But I think what in a team we should also have is a good moderator, a good listener, a good firefighter, a good innovator or something like that. And does that particular team has all of this in a given team? And if we can build more teams with this kind of a diversification included in their team itself, and a good leader to really moderate and bring that cohesiveness among this diversified people, then I think the success of that department or a team, and in turn as you go up towards your division or maybe towards your organization, will come in. And when we started practicing that, every year we map every team for this kind of a diversified the traits in human being, and whether we have all of them in that particular team, or is it too much towards going towards one side, and then there are going to be clashes. You can very clearly see it, and how much moderation you do it as a leader, still it is not going to be effective. So I think my opinion is that the regular diversification what we have seen is surely required, but more than that, I think every team needs to be analyzed for the different traits what we are human beings are demonstrating, and then automatically your selection will become more richer. And then integrating knowingly that such a team formation has been done for the various benefits what the organization and the team is going to have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll just have one quick question for Vibha. The question is, which tools, as per you, are the most effective for measuring the impact of a D&I initiative, and how to get started with your D&I journey?
I will quickly, I think Suchita kind of, shared well in terms of the matrix which are required when, we are kind of measuring the impact of D&I. Of course, the first and foremost, as Arvind shared, was on the representation analysis. And here I would like to just add that, in one of the companies where we implemented, we actually identified roles looking at the organization structure, even on the shop floor level and at the very top, where we could get different diverse hiring done in order to ensure that, we kind of, bring diversity on the table. So that was not only in terms of gender, but also in terms of ethnicity. This is what we worked on. So representation analysis is a must-have, and having a kind of a roadmap, a 3 years short-term and a long-term roadmap is important as a matrix when it comes to. The second thing was, of course, the hiring tracker, which I think Suchita very well explained, that not only in terms of sourcing, but actually who are kind of going up the funnel and what kind of people are going up the funnel. There's also the retention and having kind of stay interviews with underrepresented groups, and understanding the trends there. And that metrics measuring is also important when it comes to measuring D&I. Of course, the whole performance piece, whether it's promotions, whether it is pay equity, whether it is looking at how incentives are being paid out, and whether in that the different diversity is being reflected when we are doing an analysis, is important to understand. We also look at engagement and sentiment analysis. It's like you do a pulse survey. Nowadays, earlier we were talking about pulse survey once a year, but now we can kind of it can become a part of the culture to keep a quick check with your people on what's happening around and what the people have to say about it. And I think we have the HRMS tools today available, and especially in PHI Edge, I know the HRMS tool, which helps in kind of doing a quick pulse survey with people, understanding whether there are some underlying currents which are going on, and in particular departments or sections can easily be understood. And of course, the last would be how typically these awareness sessions that are happening, how they are happening. Are we ready? Sometimes I was undermining the role of awareness sessions, but I realized that at all levels, this is something which is a forum which helps in reminding the importance of these initiatives. So that's also something which is critical. So having these 7-8 matrix as a part of the vision, the strategic objectives reporting can really help in supporting the D&I initiatives.
Thank you, Vibha. Thank you. So I have two quick questions. I would request Vibha and Arvind to take just about, say, one minute each, 1 or 2 minutes each, to answer one question. And the second question, again, I would request Suchita and Mr. Surendra Yadav to just take about, say, quickly 1 or 2 minutes to address that. These are primarily for the participants. These are the questions that they would want us to answer. Plus, there are many more. So the first question to Vibha and to Mr. Arvind is, how can leveraging a technology-driven HRMS significantly advance the diversity, inclusion, and equity for any organization?
I think we spoke a lot about the value of data and the importance of data. I think if nothing else, the one thing that HRMS will do, and it does a lot more, is make data more transparent and easily available. I think data feeds a lot into the actions that organizations. So to my mind, that is just the first low-hanging fruit. There's a lot more that you can use HRMS platforms for in terms of performance management, cascading of goals, etc., etc. But I think data and transparency of data is just an easy big win.
Vibha?
I think I agree with Arvind that HRMS tools kind of bring help in analyzing data well. And especially when you work with very large organizations, this is the kind of tool in the hands of the HR teams to be able to kind of put across their points. So that's where technology helps in terms of understanding well where we are, what is the current state, and where we want to go. So I would kind of say that's the most important benefit of having an HRMS tool for D&I.
Thank you, Vibha and Arvind. Now, the next question for the participant, that's for Suchita and for Surendra Vaidya, is what one actionable step can every attendee take back to their organization to advance the diversity and inclusion right away?
I would say start looking at your data first. It will tell you stories that you didn't realize existed. So that is something that I would recommend. First actionable insight, look at your data. That's a great starting point of anything you're doing. Look at your business challenges and see what is it and how is it that approach. It's not diversity per se in terms of more women and more people from other states working in your plants and things like that. That's not what I mean. But how a different point of view can help you meet some of those business challenges, whatever they are. So these are the two things that I would recommend.
Thanks, Sucheta. Mr. Surendra Yadav, any views from your side, please?
Yeah, so I think the most important is that there is no right fit for one fit for everything. So every organization or every department head or a leader has to develop its own system and get inducted your team members, and move them as and when you really feel it. And second important point is, I think the diversification or the diversity what we have as a culture in India itself, if we don't respect that and if we don't really try to bring that to the best advantage for us, every state or every human being in India has a different kind of approach towards the problem, right from a jugaad to a very scientific approach. So we must take advantage of each and everything and accordingly make our systems preferably unique systems to each organization.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, I have got a few other questions that I can see in my Q&A.
So Anup, so there is a comment from one of the attendee. He's saying that it's not only the responsibility of the corporate, it's also the responsibility of the society to educate the people actually. On the top of it, I wanted to put up one question basically to Sucheta and to the Surendra sir, because they've been working closely at the plant level. How do you make or feel that particular group is adaptable to the diversity? So I think this would be the question would be in everyone's attendee's mind, that how do you make that particular group adaptable to the concept and the idea of the adaptability? What organization can do for them basically? It could be the women tribal, it could be the third gender, or it could be the regional adaptability. How do you make them feel that they are at home, they can work at that particular place? So Sucheta, if you can give your point of view to this.
Answer that what I can talk about is simple, but these are one of those things which are deceptively simple. They sound simple, but very difficult to actually, to make them happen. So I think, I think Arvind spoke about it extensively. It is making sure that people from underrepresented groups feel seen, feel heard, feel acknowledged. And this will reflect in your approach to people philosophy in your organization. So for example, when you're designing leave policies, do you think about people of different categories? If you're designing benefits, we've done a lot of work with benefits. Are you thinking about, different and underrepresented groups with benefits? Like these days, for example, for group general medical insurance, it's very common to offer IVF treatments as a part of maternity benefits or even standalone benefits. So, things like that. These are all things we never thought about, many years back. So I think one way of making sure that people have a sense of belonging, every single employee has a sense of belonging for whichever organization they are a part of, is make sure that it is not only spoken about, but also reflected in what you do.
So, Aslesha, just one thing. So I got this comment basically from one of the participants, and I think there lies a cue to the question that you asked. He says that inclusion actually should not be only inside the corporate. It should be ingrained in a society, in a broader arena. Because if it starts at home and in the society, automatically it will flow to the organization. So I think that's very well put actually. Education can be one more area by which we can inculcate this sort of a quality in the corporate also. Having said that, I know that this is too vast a topic. If anybody has got any other queries or questions, do write to Vibha. Vibha will circulate it, or do write to Aslesha. We will circulate it to all the panel members, and they'll be delighted to respond to all your queries. Vibha's email ID is vibha@phis.co.in or aslesha@phis.co.in. Thank you so much. I think 5:30 is the hard stop, and hence I've just managed to close about, say, 30 seconds before 5:30. It's been such a pleasure to host all our distinguished guests. Been a pleasure to get all the views from all the participants. We have got more than, I think, about 60 participants now. Thank you so much. Stay in touch. God bless. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.